BlueCat Health Monitoring provides alerts and interactive visualizations for DNS and DHCP servers to keep IT moving at the speed of the business. Let's jump right in. By default, you should see the system's monitoring workflow here. If, however, you are unable to see it, please make sure the workflow permissions are configured on the workflow to allow access to all the needed groups. So let's go back to the application here. As you can see, we're looking at the dashboard and there's a few tabs here, alerts and administration. Before we can do anything, let's add new servers. Let's refresh this page. And here we have our first BDDS server that's being monitored. I'll be adding a few more servers and we'll speed up that process here. We can start to look at the different metrics available and the monitoring data on the servers. So let's click on the first server here. The first thing that you'll notice is the top ribbon that shows the system information. Things like the name, fully qualified domain name, the management service address, the configuration of the BAM that it belongs to, and the roles that the server has. And then alongside with that, you'll see CPU and memory. So this gives us a good view into what the system is configured for, how much resources are allocated, and then we can start to dig into different metrics on these charts here. For any of the charts, if you have one or more metrics available, you can enable, disable, or toggle the different lines if you're focusing on just one or two values here. So for example, if I only want to look for all the times that the CPU had to wait for IO resources to free up to perform actions, I can hide the system and the user line, and now only the blue line is visible for me. You can also see that hovering on the graphs shows me real-time values for these different metrics here. I can also then enable the other ones back on, and then you can see values for all the different metrics in the chart. On top here, you have different range buttons. What this does is, once we have collected enough data, we can click on these buttons to quickly switch to 15 minutes, 1 hour, or 6 hour intervals, or 24-hour and 7 days if you change the timestamp here to collect more data, which encompasses this time frame here. You also have the range sliders on the bottom to allow you to focus into the charts. This will come in particularly useful when you look at 6 hours or 7 days worth of data and then you want to focus on a specific moment in time without having to redraw the charts. The next tab here is the network tab. Here you can see things like the kernel connection tracking table, or in other words, the NF contract table, our interface packet statistics, and bandwidth. You also notice that there's a customize button that allows you to enable, disable certain charts that you may or may not want to see. Here, I'm going to enable all of them and then scroll down to see other charts that are available for the server. For charts that don't show any data, that generally represents that there is no activity in that particular area of the system. So in this case, our ATH2 and ATH3 in network interfaces are not being used. Then we look at storage, and then there's disk charts in terms to latency, a disk read write bytes per 60 seconds, operations being performed every minute, and then our partition usage. On the DNS side, this is where things start to get more interesting as you can see more of the metrics related to DNS operations and so forth. This is a DNS server that's not being used at the moment, but we will send some queries on its way to the server so we can start seeing some activity here. There. As you can see, we see a spike at the end now that shows increase in queries for SOA and AXFR. And that's normal because this is the first time we have deployed a new zone to the server and also initiated zone transfers. and that's evidently visible here from the graphs. As you can see, some SOA queries have been made, which resulted in AXFRs. There are a number of graphs here to look at, and they're grouped together based on functions or certain types that may be looked at together. For example, things like DNS queries by record type, DDNS transactions, name server statistics, which has a lot of different metrics pertaining to a name server's performance, the different queries it's receiving, and the queries that it's resolving from the outside. So things like for a recursive DNS server, a client asks for google.com, and then this server has to go out to the internet to get answers. What those answers are that will be sent back to the client can also be seen here in the form of DNS R codes. So if the server receives server fail from the internet name servers, you'll see that shown here. Users can also set up alert thresholds for various metrics. There are 3 levels of thresholds: info, warning, and critical. BlueCat Health Monitoring app also comes with some preset alert threshold values that can be customized for different environments and use cases. The various metrics and the thresholds can be set up in 2 different levels: global and per server. Global levels are set under Administration tab and apply to all servers in this instance of application. Per server thresholds can be set at each server, which will then override the global values. To view or update threshold values, simply click on the Category tab and expand on the desired metric. Click on the level that you want to view or update, change the value, and click Save. Now the CPU utilization for info level is set to 60 instead of the default 50 for all servers. To view a list of all active and inactive alerts generated by actively monitored servers in this application, click on the Alerts tab. You will get a list of all servers that have generated alerts for different metrics, and details can be expanded on by clicking the caret sign, which will then display individual timestamps at which the values exceeded the thresholds defined on the global level or the server level if explicitly set. This list can also be viewed on a per server level by clicking on the server name and then clicking on Alerts tab. Monitoring has 2 mechanisms for sending external alert notifications. The first method is by configuring the application to send email notifications, which can be set in the main Systems Administrative settings. You can enter the email server settings, your different mail admins, and also provide credentials if needed for the SMTP server. After configuring mail settings, you can go to the application and then enable email alerts. The second method uses REST API to integrate with other SIEM or security solutions or automation systems where the notifications can be sent. This is configured under the REST API alerts that allows you to put a HTTP URL, HTTP headers, and then body of the data that can be sent. In this example, we have configured the system to send REST API notifications to a Slack channel, where we have also provided a JSON body of different fields and values that will be sent. This is a generic REST API integration that can also be configured for other systems such as Splunk, ServiceNow, etc. And that's BlueCat Health Monitoring. Visit bluecatnetworks.com to learn more.